Hello everyone and welcome to our SamuRai Lab lesson 7. Today we'll be looking at dates, a topic that I personally don't like that much. Dates are quite a pain to handle in programming, but there's certain ways to make it less of a pain um, in R through some packages that I will be actually one package that we'll be looking at today that's also part of the tidyverse. The name of that package is Lubridate, so we'll be using some of those functions to play around with some dates, etc. Some things or some changes that we required to do in our file, right, in our book1 CSV. Let's open it. So I added, let's move here. I added a new column called date and just placed some dates in here so that we can play on how to import a date. In R, it does require some, depending on the type of file you import, in this case a CSV, you might require some additional changes in there. So I made this change to make sure that you update your CSV file that you have with some dates. Something like this would be good, or maybe something different. That's entirely up to you. Okay, with that said, I'm going to close this file and let's go into R. Make this full screen. Here we go. So let's get to it. So what are we gonna do first? First, we should probably try changing how we're reading that file, right? So if you remember from the first few lessons that we had on how to import files, we can go to Files, and we're gonna click here the CSV, import dataset. Then we're gonna have this as a, I think, what did we have back then? Yeah, it was a double character, double character, and here you see that it says character, right? We don't want this to be a character. We want that to be a date. Now, if you choose date, it'll probably just, it won't work. There's also another here called date time. Of course, what we have here is a date time, but just for the sake of showing you what happens when you select date, it'll ask you for something like this, right, where you need to provide month, day, year. Here it's month, day, year, so it's the same, so it should kind of work. And then you have year 24, but I think when you have a capital Y, I think it's the full year. If you have a low cap Y, I think it's just the 24. So let's see what happens here. If you do it like this, NA, you know, it couldn't parse, so we already have a mistake here. If we import this as is, if we copy this code, it's not gonna work for us. It's not gonna import anything. Another way to do it is like you say, you kind of give up and you say like, yeah, okay, I'll import that as a character and then I'll change that with a function using Lubridate, you know, into a date time. But let's do it the proper way, which is at the moment of import, and we're gonna be changing that into a date time. So it's a date time, month, day, and let's leave the Y like this, capital Y. You have hours and you have minutes. And if you're wondering, if you have, for example, a hyphen here, instead of using a backslash, you should use a hyphen. So percentage sign and M, it's telling you that it's a month. Then this is the symbol dividing these dates. So make sure that you use the same symbol. Then you have the format here, which is the day. Then you have the year. Like I said, I think capital Y is the full year, 2024. In this case, we just have 24. So we'll have to change this. But let's try to see what happens if we just say that it's capital Y. Then we have hours, then a colon, and then minutes, right? Hours and minutes. Okay, so if we keep it like this, again, an error, right? And then you might be scratching your head, oh, what happened? It's exactly what I told you. We did the daytime wrong. This should probably be a Y like this. Format is fine. And then there we go. Now we have the days. You see that you also have the seconds in here. They're all at 0. Of course, the data didn't have seconds. But now it's good. So now let's copy this part. I'm gonna cancel this And I'm just gonna, actually I'm not gonna replace that. I'm gonna add this into a, we're missing a pipe here, so let me just write that. We're gonna call here playing with dates, and we're gonna make this a section. Remember, to make a section you use 4 hashtags at the end. And we're gonna read this. Let's give it another name. Let's call it dates data frame, dates df. Let's assign it. Books is 1. It says, of course, that we don't have the library loaded, so that was my fault. So don't be like me and remember to load the library. I think that library is reader, read R. Actually, let me load all the libraries. Dates df, and now there we have it. Dates df, it's here. It has our dates over here. Now we have imported our data. Now we can kind of start playing with this data. So we're gonna be, and sorry, I'm also checking my notes so that I don't miss anything for you guys. Sorry about that. So now we have this is date time, right? If we use str to check the dates, the data frame, this one over here, we see that we have this, it's a date, right? And if you look at the information, it says it's a POSIX CT format. It's like this, right? It's a POSIX. POSIX is basically a time element. Like I said, dates are very complex. It's, yeah, probably one of the most complex things you can do in programming dates. You know, there's leap seconds, and what happens if the leap second is not correct, and you can find news of things gone wrong because of dates. And you need to be very careful also when you import dates, depending on the file, right? If it's an Excel file, and what's the origin point for that date. I think Excel counts from some arbitrary date in 1970s or something like this. It counts from a particular date, and that's the origin. Other systems count from other dates. If you're interested in knowing more about dates and those specific details, just Google it, look it up on DuckDuckGo or Google, and you'll find a lot of information related to how dates are managed by computing systems, which is actually quite interesting, but also a huge pain when you have to actually deal with them. So now, with that small parenthesis said, we know that this is a POSIX element. Okay, that's fine. We have the dates here, and now we're gonna proceed to modify this dates df. So we're gonna be assigning it to itself. Well, before we do that, let's call it test. That way we can continue to play with our data without having to continuously reload it. So that's a nice nifty trick. I think I've used it before. And we're gonna do here a mutate. We're gonna do a mutate. Remember, mutate allows us to add variables to our data frame, right? Variables are columns, observations are rows, in case you forgot. And we're gonna be playing with this. So we have a date time. This is a date time. What if I just want the date? So let's call this actually date 2 is equal, and we're gonna be using our first function, which is as date. Second one, you see the package is lubridate, part of the tidyverse. And then we're gonna be providing our column, which is date. Now, if we execute this, we should have, of course, a new variable called date2 with just the date. So we no longer have the time in here. So that's pretty nifty, pretty cool. If you're just wanting to quickly, you know, if you just want to drop the time, you can just do that. And you say like, okay, it's gonna be just the date, what I keep. And you can do it with the function as date. There's really nothing else to this particular function as date. That's what it is. You know, it's like that. Nothing else. So pretty easy. Now we're gonna be creating more stuff. Let's say now that uh, we can add things to dates, right? There's a difficult way of adding time, and then there's an easier way of adding time. Let's look at the hard way first. So let's say that I wanted to add a full day to this date, right? I wanted to make another column called date 3, which is having 2024-08-20. How would I do that? Actually, let's add it to this one over here. Not to day 2. Let's add one full day here. How do we do that? Right? Well, let's gonna see first the hard way. So we would say date plus how many seconds are in a day. I think that's if I remember correctly, that would be 86,400 seconds that you have in a day. So you would have 60 minutes times 60 seconds, that's 3,600 times 24, 86,400 seconds. So we're gonna add 86,400 seconds. And we're gonna execute. And we're gonna see what our test data frame shows. And then of course we have exactly one day of difference. Now you might be thinking like, oh Victor, this is bad. I mean, really, you're telling me that I need to calculate the seconds every time I want to add like a day? Or what if I want to add 5 days? Do I need to just add a huge number here? That's not practical. And I agree with you. That's not practical at all. And that's where some of these functions that I will show you next really come in handy. So we can add another one. Let's create another date here. Let's call it date 4 equal to date plus a function called days, also from LubriDate. Days. So days, and then we're just gonna say, hey, I just want to add one. Execute this again, Control Enter. Let's check our test data frame, and boom, there you have it. Exactly the same thing. So that's what I was telling you. You can do it the hard way, or you can do it the easy way. I prefer, of course, to do it the easy way. And I don't think it stops there. I think you could also change this to, let's say if it's months. Is it months? Oh no, maybe not. I don't think it works like that. Well, let's see what happens. Oh, actually it does. So we added a month. What it was? Let's get crazier. Let's say days. Will these work? Days plus months 1 plus days 1. And it does. It does. So that's pretty cool. So instead of going crazy about, oh, it's like 1 month and 1 day, so that's how many seconds, and making all that math is just like, forget about it. Just write date plus months or plus days, whatever you want to add, and that will hopefully create the new date that you want. Now it doesn't stop there. Let's perform some calculations with dates. So let's do here, let's call something this column difference. Difference is equal to last. If you remember this function from our previous lesson, it's gonna take the last element of whatever we give it. So that's gonna be date. We're gonna be working with date minus first date. And let's see what this produces. Let's check our data frame. And here we have the difference is 9 hours. And what kind of element is this? str date Well, no, it's actually date df. Oh wait, it's test, sorry. There we have. And difference, it says that it's a div time class, and then it's a num, and it contains 1 to 10 elements, and all of it is the same. So in case you were wondering, I'm going to delete this. So we calculated that. We calculated also a difference. So that means you can also add and subtract dates. You know, we already did some addition here. We already played and subtracted some days with each other. But you can also do, for example, other interesting things. So we have here different dates. So let's take, for example, date 4 and date 1, the one that doesn't have a number, and we can create an interval of dates. So let's do that. Let's call it interval is equal to, so let's call it interval 1 just in case. Interval, then date, and then date, I think it was date 4. Yeah, date 4. And let's run this, execute the code, and now we have an interval, right? So let's say that we wanted to know, you know, one way is subtracting these two dates, right? The other one is creating an interval and then seeing what this interval is about. So let's see what that looks like. So let's say that I wanted to calculate what's the amount of days in that interval, right? Let's calculate that. So for that, we're gonna be using another function that is called duration, as duration. So we're gonna call this duration equal as duration from liberate, of course. And here we're gonna be typing, I believe interval 1. Now let's execute this and let's see what we see. Okay, it gives us some very interesting stuff. It says like it's what, 2,764,800 seconds, which is roughly equivalent to 4.57 weeks. Okay, that's kind of cool, but still, you know, it's kind of like unwieldy, the result. So what I think we can maybe do a little bit better. So we can also specify in as duration inside what we wanted in. Let's say we want it in days, right? So let's just pass that argument. Oh, actually, unused argument days. Let's see. Oh, sorry, it's not in here. Actually, we need to. Actually, let's check the documentation as duration. Let's see. Oh, no document. Okay, that's interesting. Well, we can always try to find the date here. We can go to the packages and if we click it there, it should take us to the help page. Here it is, as duration. Okay, as duration. Okay, here it goes. Hours and minutes. Hours and minutes. So there was no day, sorry about that. So let's do that in, let's say, hours. Oh, it's still not. What is happening here? Oh, okay. There we go. It's as numeric. So you actually need to use a combination. Sorry about that. So you cannot do it here. But let's see what happens when you have duration. Let's call duration 2 equal as, which was anyway, what I was going to explain next, how you can get different views of that. So you can use asNumeric, which is a base function. Then you can do as duration, and then let's call interval 1, and then here let's try days. And now we have here the number of days, right? 32 days. Now we can also, let's quickly copy this so that I don't spend a lot of time typing. Let's create another one. Duration 3, let's call it hours. And let's make another one. Let's call it duration 4. Let's call it into weeks, which I think we already had seen. It was 4 point something. Let's execute this. Save it, by the way. And there you go. We have what was duration? Duration 2 was days, so we have 32 days. Then we have hours, which is 768 hours. And then we have weeks, which is 4.57 weeks, which is also here, duration 1. And I think you can also write in here probably seconds. 5. And then we have exactly the same figure over here. So if you need to calculate, for example, the interval of something between two dates, you can first create that interval, and then you can use as duration and as numeric together to come up with some very interesting representations of that date depending on how you need it: days, hours, weeks, seconds. So that's very, very, very extremely handy. That's how you can really use dates to count time. Then we also have we can extract elements from dates too. So for example, let's say that we wanted to take out the year of these dates, right? How would we do that? Well, we can say year equal year, and then type in here date, which contains our date information. Let's control enter, and there we have it, the year 2024. Now let's say we want to extract also the month. Month equal, you guessed it, month, date, and now we have the month. Then let's say that we want the day. Day equal, pretty sure, I think it's pretty much sure it's day. So let's say date. Let's see if I got it right. And then I have the day. So now I have basically extracted the different elements of this date. I believe you can also do it with hours. LubrDate is a very, very big package. Well, all of the packages are quite big, and they have so many functions that I cannot go through all of them. But there's always a cheat sheet. So I already have this cheat sheet here from LubrDate.tardiverse.org, and then if you click it, you can see here get and set components, right? So you can get the hours, the minutes, the seconds, right? So let's also, just for the sake of it, do that. So hours equal hour date, hours, minutes equal minute date, and seconds equal second date. Execute this, let's save it, and then we have basically a whole date decomposed into year, month, date, hours, minutes, seconds. So in case you just want to extract a particular element from from that date, you can easily do it with these functions in LubriDate: year, month, day, hour, minute, second. Now you can also reconstruct this, right? We separate it completely. Now how do we bring it all together again? So let's try doing that. So we're gonna create, let's call it recreated, date recreated. Actually it's a date time, so date time recreated is equal, and first of all we need to get all this information together, right? So here's where our MVP paste function comes into play. So we're gonna be pasting the year, then we're gonna be pasting the month, then the day, then the hours, then the minutes, seconds, and I think that's it. And then the separator, let's just see. I'm pretty sure this is gonna work a little bit strange and it's not gonna work the way we intended, but I'm making this on purpose, so we'll see what kind of challenges we face when trying to reconstruct the date. Okay, so this, of course, this is a far cry from something. We want it to look something like this, right? So okay, it's not great. So we need to fix some things here, right? So let's fix that. So first of all, we don't want this, so we're gonna be implementing here very manually, right? And probably there's a better way of doing it, but this is just a way of doing it. The magic of programming is that there's never a single solution to fixing a problem. Okay, so you can always feel free to experiment how you want to approach things. So here I'm inserting this manually, right? The hyphens and the space, and then between hours and minutes I'm gonna implement, well, hopefully this doesn't create some crazy stuff. Okay, seconds. Let's see. And there we have it. Now it looks like it. But if we check this with SDR, we will see that it's a character, right? So it's still not a date, you know, it's a character. It's not what it should be. It's not a POSIX element like here. And we need to change this. So remember at the beginning of the lesson when I told you that there's two ways of doing this. One is importing it correctly from the start, or the other one is being lazy, saying that it's a character, and then using LubriDate to change that for you. So what we're gonna do here is that other case. How do you take a characters and transform them into a date time? So first of all, there's two things. There's date and date time. I think there's as date and as date time. So let's see how that looks like. So now that we have pasted that, what we're gonna do is here we're gonna create there's as date and as date time. Of course we have hours, minutes, and seconds, so we want to use as date time. So let's choose that one. Let's put it in here, and now if we re-execute this, it's running flawlessly. Now it says daytime recreated, and it looks the same, you know, nothing really changed, or did it? Let's check with STR. Test. Oh, there we go, POSIX. So now it is actually a date time. Now there's other things that you can do as date time, because I didn't really provide a time zone or anything like this. But you can definitely, if I remember correctly, for example, this is the origin that I was telling you about. So you have a time zone adjustment. You can set the time zone if you want. I'm not gonna set it here, but you can. Then you have also an origin. You can specify the origin. Don't play with the origin is my recommendation. Don't play with the origin unless you know what you're doing. Because if you choose the wrong origin, if you change the origin to something else, when you export your data to different places, it may not mean the same thing. You know, it might get converted to something else by the other system. So please, some friendly advice: don't play with the origin unless you really know what you're doing. At this point in your R career, I don't think it's worth playing with the origin, and probably you shouldn't touch it, right? So just leave it as that, right? And yeah, that's basically the how you can look into as date time, and you can, you know, choose origin, time zone, also play with some format. In the past, we have already played with some format. So for example, here you have the format, right? So I wonder what happens if we, and this is, I really don't know. We say format, and we pass this one inside. And can we change it? Let's say we want it as, let's go a little bit crazy. Let's say we want, let's say we want the percent year, just to see if it can be done. Percent month, percent day, space, percent hour. Then this I'm gonna play with time, hours, minutes, and seconds. Let's see if it works. And yeah, there it worked. It actually worked. Of course, this is very confusing, right? 240819. So you get like, okay, is this a year or is it a day? So I don't recommend doing it like that, right? So we're gonna say that it's year, capital year, Y, and then we have our date also formatted. So we could have also done, I think it's, is it B? What does B? I think B does something. Oh yeah, there we go. So B gives you the like the name of the month, right? And there's many options in which you can format dates. I think there was a time that, let's actually open something in here with format dates in R. And here have websites from Statology. We can see that you can use the abbreviated month, the unabbreviated month, a 2-digit year, 4-digit year, abbreviated weekday, if you somehow wanted that, unabbreviated weekday, month as a number. Yeah, so let's try unabbreviated month, just for the sake of it. So we're gonna do, I think that was B, right? And there we have it, date time, right? But that still looks kind of weird. I just like the typical one, so I'm just gonna leave it like this, right? I'm not gonna be playing with it too much. And also, let's rename this to dates df, because I think we're done playing a little bit with this. I think this basically is taking us to the end of our lecture today, of our lesson. There's many other things to dates. The cheat sheet will help you look into all of that, how you can round times, how you can get components, time zones, math with date times, so many things that you can do with dates. And Lubridate makes it much easier to work with. Of course, every now and then you'll want to pull your hair out because some date is just not working for you, right? From the moment you try to import it, or when you're trying to export it into an Excel file and the date is showing as some kind of weird number. There's so many things that go wrong with dates, but Lubridate makes it a little bit easier to work with. So I do recommend that if you have some time, that you look into the cheat sheet of Lubridate and try to play around with some of the functions that it has. Now, I think I went through the basics of how to manipulate dates here. Like I said, there's so many things that you can do that I won't explain, but this should give you a very good understanding on how to change the formatting of the date, how you can extract the elements of a date. Very, very useful. For example, if you have, let's say you have a lot of data that contains information for the whole year, and you have a column that contains for every single day, let's say how many let's say phones were sold in a day, right? And you have that, and you wanted to obtain, let's say, the average of the month, right? If you have the date, it will contain 2024 0101. And if you try to group by date, it's going to be basically grouping by every single day. So you cannot do that. So if you wanted to group by month, you need to like, oh, okay, I can probably create a new column called just month, right? And you can format that however you want, if you want the number or if you want the number, right? And then you can, of course, then with the month extracted, you can group by that month and then obtain the average or the mean by that month. So that's how you can do things, right? And you can do the same thing with the year. If you have 2 years worth of data, what was the average sales, for example? Then you just extract the year, then you can group by that year and get the average that you want. So that's how you can start combining all these different things. And that's why it's important for you to know how to manipulate dates, at least to some extent, because they're just everywhere, right? They're everywhere, and you should know how to manipulate and use them. With that said, I think that brings us to the end of today's class. Again, we managed to keep it below 45 minutes, as I always promise, right? I hope that you enjoyed today's class. I hope that you continue to learn R. I hope that you're getting better and better at it through the lessons that we have. And I hope that at this point you're almost hopefully able to perform some analysis on your own with some things, because you definitely have the tools to start doing some things with R instead of using Excel. There's still many more things that we will cover. For example, you may want to format that Excel file into a very specific way. There's a package to do that. Don't worry, we will cover that in another lesson. And many other things. I hope you enjoyed the class. And if you like my classes, if you like this channel, please like and subscribe. It helps me get my course out to more people. I'm doing this as, I just want to give something back from what I've learned in R, and I believe it can significantly improve the productivity of people and, give you more time to not stress about work and just do other things in your work that you actually enjoy. That is my goal. If I manage to do that would be great. So help me achieve my goal, which is also trying to get the word out. So like and subscribe, tell your friends, hey, there's this Dr. Cuesta is teaching me how to be a samurai. Whoa, what is samurai? Well, someone who knows how to use R very well, and he's kind of cool. So yeah, go watch him. So if you can spread the word, that would be great. And I think with that said, we're done for today. Thank you for joining. And next lesson we'll be looking at more interesting stuff. If I quickly check, let me see what we're gonna be looking at next time around. Next time around we're gonna be looking at, and I don't want to take more of your time. Yeah, actually next lesson we'll be looking at how we can format an Excel. So that's gonna be a very, very fun class, and with that one, you'll be able to do so many crazy things. It's gonna be great. So I look forward to all of you joining that class, right? So thank you for spending some time today, and yeah, class dismissed. See you for lesson 8.